Welcome back, everyone, and get ready because today we're diving into something that's been making headlines, and frankly, it's got me a little puzzled too. Gold. You know, it's that shiny stuff, been valuable forever, but here's the thing that's throwing me off. Gold prices are going up, surging even, and the U.S. economy, well, it's not exactly in the dumps right now. So it's not your typical, oh no, things are bad, gotta run to gold situation. We're gonna dig into this new gold rush and see what's really driving it. I have a feeling we're gonna uncover some pretty big, maybe even surprising things about how the whole global money system works. And hey, maybe it'll even make you rethink what money really is. Who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because what we're seeing doesn't quite fit the usual story about gold. Usually, demand for gold goes way up when economies are tanking or when people are bailing out of the stock market. But this time around, well, there's something else going on.
Okay, so before we jump into the why of all this gold craziness, can we take a step back for a sec? What makes gold so valuable in the first place? I mean, it's not like oil that we use for energy or wheat for food.
All right, well, gold's been prized for a long, long time, like thousands of years. And it's always been about its scarcity, the fact that it doesn't corrode. And yeah, it's pretty to look at, too. So people have always loved it for jewelry and decoration, but it's also been this constant store of value. Historically, gold's been like a currency itself, even backing up paper money. And it always gives people this sense of security when things are, well, not so secure.
I see. So limited supply, doesn't tarnish. I get it. It makes sense. But here's what I don't get. Why gold and not something else that's rare and shiny? Like, what about platinum or diamonds? Those are super limited too, maybe even more so.
That's the thing about gold, isn't it? Even Warren Buffett, the super investor guy, he's famous for questioning what gold is actually good for. He's like,
Yeah.
It doesn't make you money. It doesn't produce anything. But even he can't deny that throughout history, gold has had this pull on people, on whole nations even. It's like it's got this almost mythical quality to it.
It's like it's built into us, right? This gut feeling that it's valuable no matter what. But bringing it back to today, what's different about this gold rush? Why is it happening now?
So this time, you can't just blame it on a bad economy or people freaking out about the stock market. One of the big things driving this gold rush is what central banks are doing, especially in countries like China and Russia. They're buying up physical gold like crazy at a rate we've never seen before.
Whoa, wait, so it's not just individuals buying gold bars, it's whole countries making big moves. That definitely changes things. Why are they so hungry for gold all of a sudden?
It's a mix of stuff, honestly, like what's happening in the world politically and how the whole global money system is shifting. Things like when Russia's assets got frozen, their money held in U.S. dollars. That freaked out a lot of countries. They realized that relying so much on the U.S. dollar, well, it could make them vulnerable if things go south, politically speaking.
So they're basically saying they don't trust the US dollar as much anymore. But hold on, what does that have to do with gold?
It's like this. Gold is something real. You can hold it, and there's only so much of it. No single government or bank controls it. So by putting some of their reserves in gold, these countries are saying, hey, we want some financial independence here. It's real, it's finite, and history shows it tends to hold its value even when everything else is falling apart.
So we've got countries hoarding gold, this growing doubt about the usual financial system, and this feeling that things might not be as stable as we thought. Okay, that's a strong case for gold, I'll admit. But wait, what about Bitcoin? Where does all this digital currency stuff fit into this gold rush picture?
That's the million-dollar question right now.
Yeah.
A lot of investors are trying to figure that out. Bitcoin, it's often called digital gold. And it does have some things in common with gold. Limited supply, controlled by no one, and it exists outside those traditional financial systems.
So are we looking at a digital gold rush happening at the same time as a real one? Are they competing, or do they both benefit from people losing trust in the old ways?
That's exactly what we're going to dig into next.
This is getting good. Okay, so Bitcoin, this digital gold, is it really a rival to the real deal, or is it just hitching a ride on gold's comeback tour?
It's funny because both of them, gold and Bitcoin, they kind of appeal to the same feeling in people, this idea that you want something that's like beyond the reach of governments and all those big financial institutions. They both tap into this sense that the system, the way we've always done things, well, maybe it's getting a little shaky, a little risky.
Yeah, I see that they both play on this distrust, but in totally different ways. Gold, it's got history on its side. It's something you can hold in your hand, like real value you can touch. But Bitcoin, it's all digital. It's all about code and the internet. So does that make it less trustworthy or maybe for some people more trustworthy because it's so different?
That's a really interesting point. You're right, gold, you could hold it, and that's always been comforting, especially when things are going crazy in the world. It's this like physical symbol of value, no matter what country you're in or what politicians are saying. But think about it. Our world is becoming more and more digital every day. And the way we think about value, well, that's changing too. For younger people who grew up with the internet, Bitcoin being intangible, it's not really a problem. It might even be a good thing because it just makes sense to them. It fits with how they see value being created and traded online.
It's kind of like, comparing an old record player to Spotify. Both give you music, but the experience, how it works, it's totally different. And what you prefer, well, it depends on how old you are, how comfortable you are with technology, maybe even like your whole philosophy about what's valuable.
That is such a perfect analogy. And you hit the nail on the head, deciding between gold and Bitcoin. It's not just about the numbers or how they've performed in the past.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out what you believe in, how much risk you're okay with, and how you see the future of money and value, because that's changing fast.
So it's not just about picking a winner in some horse race. It's about figuring out what each thing represents and how it fits with your own view of money. Okay, but let's get practical for a sec. Any big differences between gold and Bitcoin, other than the whole physical versus digital thing that our listeners should know about?
One biggie is how much their price jumps around, their volatility. Gold is known for being pretty stable, moves slow and steady. But Bitcoin, that thing is famous for its wild rides, up one day, way down the next.
So gold's the tortoise, slow and steady, and Bitcoin's the hare, always hopping around. Which one you like depends on whether you want to play it safe or you're feeling a little more adventurous.
Exactly. And speaking of risk, there's a big difference in how they're regulated, how the governments see them. Gold, it's been traded for centuries, so there are clear rules and everyone knows how it works. But Bitcoin, it's still the new kid on the block, and governments are still trying to figure out what to do with it. That uncertainty, it could be good or bad for investors. You never know.
It's like Bitcoin is the Wild West of finance, right? Lots of potential, but also lots of unknowns. Which brings us back to that prediction from Ryan, the one about AI maybe using Bitcoin for transactions. At first, it sounded kind of sci-fi to me, but the more we talk about how things are changing, the more I can see it happening. What do you think? Could AI be a game changer in this whole gold versus Bitcoin showdown?
It's a really interesting idea, and it makes you think about a future where the line between the real world and the digital world, it just fades away. If AI starts using Bitcoin, because they can crunch tons of data and make decisions based on cold, hard logic, well, it could change the entire game of global finance.
It's like we're watching a whole new financial system being born, one that runs alongside the old system but plays by its own rules. And that opens up a whole can of worms, doesn't it? Like, who gets to make the rules in this new world? And what happens if these two systems start bumping heads?
You're asking the right questions. This isn't just about picking between gold and Bitcoin anymore. It's about understanding how they all fit together, how they're pushing and pulling on each other. And then you got to make your own choices based on what you think the risks and rewards are.
No easy answers here, but a lot to think about. Okay, let's bring it back down to earth for our listeners, for the everyday person trying to figure out where to put their money. Should they be buying gold bars or setting up a Bitcoin wallet? What's the move?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no magic formula. It all depends on you, your situation, and what you're comfortable with. But there are definitely some things to keep in mind when you're trying to figure out how to play in this new financial world.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the history of gold to the rise of Bitcoin, all this talk about trust in the financial system, and even Wow, AI may be getting in on the money game, but let's get real. What does all this mean for our listeners, the people trying to figure out how to manage their money in this crazy new world?
I think the big thing is you got to find what works for you, what you're comfortable with, because everyone's different. Like if you like the idea of having something real, an asset you can hold, and you want something that's proven itself over time, then gold might be worth exploring.
So let's say someone's thinking about gold. What are their options? Do they have to go full pirate and bury treasure chests in their backyard?
Uh-huh. Well, you could. But for most folks, there are easier ways to get into gold. One way is to buy actual gold, like coins or bars. You can find reputable dealers online or even in some regular stores these days.
Yeah, that Costco gold bar thing is still in my head. Gotta admit it's tempting. But seriously, what are the good and bad things about owning physical gold?
Well, the plus side is you're in control, you own it. No stock market ups and downs or banks messing with it. But there are some downsides too. Storing it can be a pain. You got to worry about security, and it's not as easy to sell quickly if you need cash fast.
So it's more for someone who's in it for the long game, who wants that feeling of security and knowing they have something real. But maybe not for someone who needs quick access to their money. Are there other ways to invest in gold without needing a secret vault and armed guards?
Definitely. Gold ETFs are a good option for a lot of people. They're like baskets of gold that you can buy and sell on the stock market, so it's much easier than dealing with physical gold.
Okay, so ETFs are like the modern, convenient way to get into gold. But what about Bitcoin? How do you join the digital gold rush?
The main way is through cryptocurrency exchanges, websites where you can buy, sell, and trade Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. There are a ton of these exchanges out there, so you got to do your research and pick one that's trustworthy and has good security.
It does feel a little like the Wild West out there with all these exchanges popping up. What should people be looking for to avoid getting scammed?
Security is key, so look for exchanges that use two-factor authentication and store your Bitcoin offline, what they call cold storage. That makes it much harder for hackers to steal your coins. Also, check the exchange's reputation, read reviews from other users to see if they're reliable.
So do your homework, pick a good exchange, and always be security conscious. Good advice for any investment, really. But stepping back for a minute, all this talk about gold, Bitcoin, it's really about a shift in how people see money, right? It's not just about dollars and cents anymore. It's about having control, being independent, and trusting a system that, while a lot of people feel isn't working for them.
Absolutely. More and more people are realizing that the current financial system, it has its problems. And they're looking for something different, whether it's gold, Bitcoin, or something else entirely. The message is clear. People want more control over their financial lives, and they want something that matches their values and how they see the future.
It's like we're watching a new financial world being born, one that's more open, more fair, and more in tune with what people want. It's pretty exciting, even if it's a little scary sometimes.
It's definitely a time of big change. And yeah, there's uncertainty, but there's also a ton of opportunity. The old rules are changing, and the people who are willing to learn, adapt, and explore, those are the ones who'll do well in this new world.
So for our listeners, the people trying to figure all this out, what's the most important thing to remember?
Stay curious, stay informed, and don't be afraid to question how things have always been done. Finance is changing fast, and the best thing you can have is a mind that's open to learning and changing with the times.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into gold, Bitcoin, and the future of money. We hope this has given you some things to think about and that you'll keep exploring these topics. They're super interesting. And don't forget, we've got a bunch of resources in the episode description, articles, research, even some videos to keep you learning.
The world of money is changing fast, and it's important to stay informed and engaged. So keep asking questions, keep challenging your assumptions, and never stop learning.
Great advice. Until next time, happy investing, everyone.